Welcome to Ascend Growth AI Podcast, where we highlight founders and leaders who are building world-changing organizations and explore how smart strategy systems and a little AI magic can help them expand their impact. Today, I am honored to sit down with Mike Waldron, Marine Corps veteran, founder, and executive director of the 23rd Veteran. Mike served in the Marine Corps Infantry during the initial invasion of Iraq in 2003, then spent years battling anxiety, panic attacks, and invisible wounds of war before discovering his own path back to hope and happiness. Out of that journey, he created 23rd Veteran, a nonprofit trauma recovery program that runs a powerful 14-week experience called 23V Recon, combining outdoor adventure, fitness, positive psychology, and peer community to help veterans and first responders rewire their brains and build new positive associations with old triggers. The result has been so strong that some participants literally drive hundreds of miles a day to be part of it. We'll talk to Mike about his journey from combat to founder, how 23rd Veteran is changing lives, the leadership lessons he's learned, and how tools like AI could help him reach more veterans, partners, and supporters so his mission can scale to cities and communities that need it most. Thank you for being with us, Mike.
Thank you for having me on.
Tell us about 23rd Veteran and your journey to creating it. How did your experience in the Marine Corps and your own struggle with post-traumatic stress lead to this specific 14-week program?
That's a good question. So I served in the Marine Corps from 2000 to 2004. So I was in the initial invasion to Iraq in 2003. Being in the infantry, I spent a good amount of time in combat. There were some changes that happened in my brain that I didn't realize at the time. And it took about 5 years, maybe 6 years before it really manifests into some strong anxiety and panic attacks. Particularly, I was driving down the road one day in a car on a freeway, and all of a sudden, my heart started racing. My chest got really tense. I had a hard time. I got like tunnel vision. I had a hard time thinking. I couldn't really drive. My body was shaking. I was breathing heavy. I thought for sure that it was a heart attack because my chest started cramping. I was just feeling like my pulse beat out of my neck. So I pulled over on the shoulder of the freeway of the interstate and switched spots with the passenger who brought me to the hospital emergency room. It happened to be at VA. It was just a few miles away. Put me on EKG, told me I was fine, and sent me home. I was thinking to myself, like, I'm not fine. That was real. Like, that was a heart attack. I was dying. Either I didn't get to the hospital in time or the machines are broken. And it kept happening. Over the next couple months, that kept happening. I went to the hospital 5 different times, thinking I was dying of a heart attack, until eventually I was escorted to what they call the Operation Iraqi Freedom Counseling Department. I felt out of place. I didn't know I was there. Nobody explained what anxiety or depression or panic or any of that was to me. But I was on medications for a while and they didn't seem to be working. So we were changing medications and increasing dosages. And what I was having, obviously those weren't heart attacks, those were panic attacks. And they continued daily for years. I lived with those panic attacks like multiple times a day. And especially anytime I went into bed at night, I would have a panic attack. And in hindsight, I understand why. I had a lot of war dreams. So my brain thought I was entering combat every time I'd go into the bedroom at night, and I would have a panic attack. And I'd love to explain a little bit more of the science behind the panic attacks and why that would happen. So that's what led to me. So as my experience in combat led to me struggling immensely with mental health. There was a lot more in addition to that. I was very isolated. I didn't trust people, which leads to depression. And long story long, 2013, I figured out something that worked for me, and it worked very well. I was able to completely stop having panic attacks. I haven't had one since February of 2013. I was able to find hope again and happiness and learn how to improve my brain. I learned that there are behaviors that I can execute. There's foods that I can eat that actually change who I am or who I want to be as a person. I got really excited about that and got together with a positive psychologist, a psychotherapist, and a personal trainer. I did a lot of studying on mental health and neuroplasticity. And we put together a 14-week program to help other people who've experienced trauma pull out of their severe symptoms. So through our 14-week program, we focus on functional mental health and something we call fear reassociation.
I find it fascinating and really neat when people choose to take something that they've broken through and use it to benefit other people, have that aha moment of, I can take this now that I'm on the other side and help so many people that I know that are struggling with what I'm struggling with. So that's a really neat thing. Was it hard for you to find the people to partner with, or was that pretty easy?
I would say hard. Like, it was easy to find like people that want to get involved to help create the program. That was easy. Hard finding people to fund it. So I worked for the federal government at the time. I was managing U.S. courthouses and federal buildings. I had a business degree. I didn't enjoy that. I enjoyed the work. I personally didn't enjoy working for the organization I was working for. So when I found out that I had a way to help my friends, I felt like because I knew I could, then I had to. If I had the ability, then I had the responsibility. So I quit that job and I cashed in my retirement to get the organization going. And I figured I would be the executive director of it. I worked for full time for a couple of years before we had funding, really. I just lived off the retirement. And then the reason I did that, I went into it thinking, okay, we'll just be able to raise money and I can have a salary to be able to get by and cover my bills. Well, I got so focused on the programs. It was so helpful for the people and they really needed it, folks that we were serving, that I didn't really care about fundraising. Like I just did programs 100% until I didn't have anything else. I was selling all my stuff. I sold my boat, my motorcycle. I was down to my truck, my dog, and my house. And it's like, we should probably do some fundraising. So that part is difficult. Find people to fund it before we had studies and legitimacy behind the program.
When you think about the early days of 23rd Veteran, what was the moment you realized this is working? Was there a specific story or breakthrough with the veteran that really cemented your commitment?
I have too many of those that come to mind. The very earliest on, I would say this is before the organization even got our 501c3, before we were officially a nonprofit organization, just doing small events and telling my stories. I think one of the things that really stood out I became good at was being able to candidly talk about my combat stress, about my mental health struggles, and then understanding them so that I can tell it so other people would understand it. And just at small events, I would pick somebody out to walk with, and I still do that. Walk with and talk and learn about them and then share some of the struggles I had. And it connects so well because military has gotten better now, but still, like military, law enforcement, firefighters, any type of emergency response, like we always look at ourselves as the heroes, and that's what we're taught. We're not the broken ones. I don't believe that anything to do with PTSD is broken. We can talk about that. But that's just the attitude that we come at it with. And because of that, there's a really strong stigma to talk about it. And people have been yearning for it. Like when they could hear me talk about my mental health struggles with confidence and to see that I've been able to pull out of them, that was just eye-opening how many people and just how deeply this is needed in the community.
I think lots of people feel a sense of shame. They just automatically assign shame to it. And I think vulnerability is the number one thing that helps people get out of that. Seeing someone vulnerable enough to say, I struggled with something we don't talk about, and here's how I got to the other side. There's a lot of power in that.
I love that. We had somebody recently, one of our staff members, that said something that I quote now often because I loved it so much. The first one to be vulnerable wins. And we're so much more alike than we realize. We're just afraid to be the first one to share it.
You find that, I think, I'm not a huge fan of Facebook, but I do find that sometimes when you say something on Facebook, you give other people the freedom to be able to say, I agree with that. I think lots of times we live in our own little cocoon, like our own little world, and we don't realize until someone does something vulnerable, right? And they put it out there to say, oh, I did that too. And then all of a sudden the person who chose to be vulnerable doesn't feel so alone in it, and they might get a solution and all sorts of stuff. Really cool. How would you describe your leadership style today compared to when you started 23rd Veteran back in 2015-16?
It's an interesting question. How has my leadership style changed over the years? I certainly, when starting the organization, I was the person who did everything. Obviously, I was the only person in the organization, but I was pretty darn good at enlisting volunteers. However, I don't think I was ever micromanaging, but I was always ensuring everything was done and picking up the slack and where it needed. Leadership style today is more of empowering others to not only carry out their jobs, but to advance them, to improve them. And to give them, that's probably not the right term to use. I was going to use the term, give them enough rope to hang themselves. That's one, inappropriate, and two, not really what I'm going for, but to allow them to fail. I think so much of our learning is done through failure. And that's one of the things that I have focused on in the past in 23rd Veteran is really pointing out, like, what are our failures? What can we improve? If we don't recognize those failures, we're just going to fail on it again. Another term that I heard early on, I'm not sure who said it, but to fail forward is so much more productive than hiding our failures.
You allow them to be safe in their failure.
That's a good question. That's not one I think about often, how my leadership style has changed. I have full-time people to lead.
Know your strengths and surround yourself with people stronger, right?
Absolutely. I'm pretty darn good at finding people to do things that I'm terrible at.
Who is the ideal participant or customer for 23rd Veteran programs right now?
So we talk about our programs is anybody who's experienced something traumatic during their service. What we don't do is diagnosis. We don't diagnose and we don't base our programming on a diagnosis. So back to that stigma in the first responder and military community. There's a lot of people that will never improve themselves mentally because they feel like that makes them weak. The fundamental design of therapy, I believe, is just incorrect when it comes to the first responder community. So one of the most important things to do in therapy is to create that safe environment. Not only the place that you're sitting, but the person you're talking with even more so. You have to be able to create that trust. And if we don't get there, we'll never be able to become truly vulnerable. If we are in a heightened state of arousal and we try to recall negative memories, that can just reinforce that negative feeling while we're recalling it. It's really important to be safe and comfortable when we're trying to recall some of those memories. The way that therapy is done today is we're taking people who generally wear body armor, they wear weapons, and that's what keeps them safe. They know like those are the items that they need to keep them safe. And then we make them take that off. And then we put them in this sterile environment of sometimes it feels like a hospital, especially if you go to like VA hospital for therapy. And we have to sit in front of somebody who has the ability to take our job away. Like it is near impossible to get that first responder to feel comfortable and safe in that situation. So the therapy is going to be very difficult to accomplish. So something that we do in 23rd Veteran is we don't talk about the diagnosis. We don't have therapists involved, and we don't use words like disorder. We don't use words like help on our program side. So our programs are designed for people who want to better themselves. It's people that want to create the strongest version of them. And what often happens is when they get into our programs and they start feeling better, they start like increasing their happiness or their quality of life or decreasing their fears, their triggers, their trauma responses. They can look back and think like, oh my gosh, I really was struggling. But to get somebody in a point and say, hey, you're struggling, you need help, is just, it's hard for people across the board, and even more so for our first responders military community. And I'm talking so much, I completely forgot the question you asked me.
It's actually a fresh perspective. People feel safe when they have their armor on, and then to take that off and be vulnerable. That was just a very real response that I think a lot of people will be able to identify with.
I hope so. It happens regularly. People either wouldn't go to therapy or they went to therapy and they'd only go once or twice and hated it. And some people go through all kinds of different therapies and don't really find help. And then they'll enter our programs. And within a few days, they're able to create these incredible social bonds and have these ridiculously vulnerable conversations. I'd love to talk about how we do that and how we open up the vulnerability amongst the people who don't like being vulnerable. That's something that we certainly specialize in 23rd Veteran.
So do you start off in your trust process with doing something where you're allowing them to be in their state of protectedness to create the initial bond or the initial trust and then work on breaking it down from there? Is that how it goes?
So you see our recruiting side on getting people to enter into the program. That might be true. I'll go meet with officers while they're on duty at their favorite coffee shop, something like that. Just really safe for them. When you're entering our program, it's 14 weeks. 14-week program they have to commit to. The first week is a huge commitment. They have to take a week off of life, a week off of work, and we send them to a distant outdoor wellness adventure. So we might be sending them on a float plane to the middle of nowhere, Alaska. So that's a huge vulnerable step, but it is necessary for this program. And I can tell you why. At orientation, like moments before they get on that flight, they go through a 2-hour orientation, and people are generally have strong judgments on each other. We're looking around the room, we're figuring out what social class everybody fits in, what political class everybody fits in. A lot of people are feeling uncomfortable. I'm going to hate this. I don't know what I got myself into. When we get on that airplane and we go to a survival adventure in the middle of nowhere, there's no cell phones. It wouldn't matter if we had a cell phone. There's no reception. There's no distractions on daily life. All we're doing is bringing us back to a human level where we have to do the things that humans have had to do throughout human history. We make camp, we harvest food, we cook food, we exercise or do something strenuous together. We might move from point A to point B, we make camp, we learn some survival skills. So we're all focusing on the same thing, and that's just being human and surviving. And all of those judgments and those barriers just melt away. So at the end of the day, when we have a campfire, we sit around, like maybe we just finished our dinner, and we'll have some simple questions that we propose, like, why are you here? And those conversations are so easy to get so vulnerable and just be honest with ourselves and the people around us, mainly because those barriers of judgment are just gone. And it's something magical. In a short 6-day outdoor wellness adventure, people go from having these negative feelings a lot of times towards each other, to coming back with people that they're going to be best friends with for the rest of their life. It is unreal. Like, everybody's hugging, group hugs. They're so sad to say goodbye to each other. They can't wait to get together again for the rest of the program. So that really sets the stage for this 14-week program, breaking into that vulnerability. Now we have this unspoken accountability that we are all part of this team and we all want to see these friends again. So then we all come out, not because we're forced to, but because we want to be part of the rest of the functional mental health program.
Do you promote what the different steps are in your 14-week program? Is that listed where you kind of show how it comes together?
Somewhat. Yeah, like we have an overview. We have a playbook that actually facilitates the whole program. It's like a 200-some page workbook that everybody has, and they all bring it to their session every day. So it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. After that outdoor wellness adventure for the next 13 weeks, we get together Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Something unique about this is all of our group therapy happens in a gym. So right before we go through the playbook together, we'll do an hour coach-led workout. So we do like functional fitness to get our heart rate up, because we can learn better after our heart rate is elevated. The magic number, some research has shown that 20 minutes of an elevated heart rate releases our maximum levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is one of the neurotransmitters that helps with our memory. We work out, and then we can learn better for the next 4 hours because we worked out. That's when we sit down and we do our group therapy together. So it all happens in a gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we're always focusing in those therapy sessions. This is where we call it functional mental health. We're focusing on one of the behaviors that is shown to optimize neurotransmitters that are important for our mental health, like oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine. So an entire week, when we sit down in the gym, we'll be talking about oxytocin and the behaviors that we've been exercising around that, what we can do differently. Then we go home and do homework, and we actually do those behaviors that are shown to optimize our oxytocin. And then we report on that the next day. Then we come to the gym, we work out, and then we sit down and we talk about some other behaviors around oxytocin and so on and so forth. The next week, we're focusing on serotonin. All of our homework is focusing on serotonin. We also have spirituality weeks, mindfulness weeks. We have nutrition weeks. So there's a lot of other things built in that can optimize our mental health. What we don't do, I guess to further answer your question, what we don't do is specify. We don't tell everybody what they're going to be doing before the program. We definitely don't share everything they'll be doing on the outdoor wellness adventure. The reason we don't do that is because if we are having struggles ourselves, if we're depressed or anxious, we might always be looking for the negative. We're looking for the reason that we don't want to join. If we put too much information out there, someone's going to say, well, that's the reason I don't want to join. When in reality, if they would just go through it, maybe that would be the reason that they want to be there. Or it's like somebody tells you, somebody sitting next to you in the movie theater or telling you what's about to happen in the movie. It's definitely not the same experience.
On the supporter side, who is your ideal partner? Corporations, first responder agencies, foundations, individual donors? What would your dream partner look like?
We have people who love to do peer-to-peer fundraising. So folks that don't have or choose not to donate money, they can put themselves through difficult physical adventures for a reason to ask others to donate money. So we do something called Ruck Life. So people will have maybe 500 people sign up for an event and go on a march. It's a very high energy event. We have live music and DJs and food trucks and beer trucks, and it's just a big festival. And then it's called peer-to-peer fundraising. So doing that, you can ask people to donate. When it comes to granting organizations and foundations that like to support military, like to support law enforcement, firefighters, first responders, just people that are putting their lives on the line in public safety. One of the ways I say that is folks that have already and continue to sacrifice for you are the folks that you can put a little more support towards. When it comes to corporate sponsors, we have galas and we have events and things that if they're interested in putting their name on things for marketing dollars, we have those opportunities as well. Most of the people that support 23rd Veteran support because they want to, not because they'll be getting something in return, but there is also opportunities to get marketing or branding in return.
Geographically, where is 23rd Veteran operating today, and where do you ultimately want the program to go?
Today, we are based in Minnesota. We have 3 different locations in Minnesota that we're running our 14-week program out of. On occasion, we run it in other locations around the country, and that really is based on funding. We like to keep dollars as local as we can. So if somebody raises money in Washington, then we can come and run our program out of Washington. We also do a lot of community education and keynote speeches. I do a lot of keynote speaking. So that's nationwide. Mental health conferences, military conferences, ERGs, like employee resource groups or employee inclusiveness groups at larger corporations. Did one in Seattle not too long ago. What was the other part of your question? Oh, where we want to. Our programming, I would love this programming to be available in major cities across the US. Definitely duplicate this type of programming across the world. It's new, it's fresh, it works really, really well for a demographic that's been falling through the cracks. My personal goal is to change the way the DoD exits people from the military. It's not much different than it was when I got out 20 years ago. We have this 3-month-long active program to learn how to be in the military. Like I learned how to be a Marine through this boot camp program. I learned how to change the way I talk, the way I think. I felt how to be comfortable in the Marine culture. And then when I deployed to combat, I learned how to be comfortable in a killing environment. And then when I got out of the military, I had a 5-day PowerPoint class on how to look for a job, where to find clothes, how to try to use my GI Bill, and if I struggle, look for the VA. That's not a very successful model, I don't think, for taking our military members and exiting them from the military. I think having a long-term program that's focused on both the conscious and the subconscious level on how to be successful in the civilian world is definitely needed on the DoD side, not on the VA side. The VA side is, at least in my opinion, the responsibility wouldn't fall on an organization that didn't train them into the military. When we get trained in the military, I think that same organization should be responsible for training us out of the military.
That's a great perspective. Do you get any leverage with that? I mean, I know that's your desire. Is that actionable?
Well, changing the DoD is not, it can be done, absolutely. I've had conversations in DC about it with representatives, and people are supportive.
I think it's a good point. I think it's a good perspective, and I think it's needed. I agree with you. The more that you speak that and the more that people are aware of it, I think you can get some really good support behind that. That's why we do what we do, is to try to get awareness out there.
I'll keep doing my best. That's outside of like the 501c3 and what we do in 23rd Veteran. Definitely needed, and it can be done.
It's an important mission. What are some of the current trends you see in the veteran and first responder mental health arena today that are impacting your growth strategy?
The trends. When we talk about the stigma, there's definitely been a trend there. It's been greatly reduced in the veteran community. It's been reduced in the military community. From my experience, firefighters are slightly behind military and veterans. I'm thinking quick reaction forces, but a lot of communities and counties will have their emergency response teams. I think the stigma isn't as strong there. I think law enforcement, the stigma is still there. I think law enforcement is at least 10 years behind the veteran community when it comes to the stigma and mental health and being okay and accepting to treat, which it's going to be tough because those are probably also the people that can easily, it's the most easy for them to lose their job or lose their position or be limited in their career if they come forward with mental health struggles. Somehow we have to, I think people on an individual level recognize it, but somehow as a community and as an industry, we have to be able to celebrate people who are bettering their mental health in law enforcement rather than punish those who have a diagnosis. It's just an incorrect viewpoint in the entire industry and culture that mental health is a negative thing, where the way I look at it, and I do believe this is correct, is we know the things that we can do to increase and improve our physical health. If we want to be stronger, if we want to run faster, if we have more endurance, we know there's things we can do. People don't really know what they can do to increase their mental health. Seeking mental health programming can be just that. It doesn't matter where we are on our level of happiness. I look at happiness as like a scale from -10 to +10, and 0 is like neutral. And most of even the physical communities, like the medical community, mental health community, most of that is looking at taking people that are in the negative and trying to get them back to 0, back to neutral. But nobody really likes to live their life at neutral. They're at 0. So the way that I look at mental health is it doesn't matter where you are in that scale. You could be at a +3, a +4. There's still actions you can take to become happier, to become higher quality of life, to be more patient person, be able to sleep better, be able to love deeper. I mean, just because we're working on our mental health doesn't mean that it's broken.
I think that we need to package it in a way that it's just looked at a little bit differently and not as necessarily making it seem like it is something that's broken. It's not broken. You're just making it better. And we all have room for improvement. It doesn't matter what it is.
I like the way you say that. Like if we could package it that way for this first responder community and definitely law enforcement community, then who doesn't want law enforcement with stronger mental health?
I just started doing Tai Chi not very long ago, and I never thought in a million years that I would break a sweat doing Tai Chi, and I also didn't think that it would create the calm that it does, and it's just Tai Chi, and it's unbelievable the impact that it has, and they're just very simple moves to do. And I thought to myself, You don't think of that as working out, but it's actually working out. I just had to train my mind to think of it a little bit differently. I was definitely impacting my health and my well-being.
Yeah.
We just have to look at things. That was the old person's exercise. So I just happened to sit in this chair all day long and I was like, I have to try something. And I just thought, shoot, I just can walk down to the next room and put my phone up and try it. And man, what an impact it made. So packaging is everything. Let's talk about systems and technology. How do you currently use AI or automation, if at all, to support the 23rd veteran?
I use it as an assistant, artificial intelligent assistant. 23rd veteran doesn't use it, particularly in marketing. It has been very helpful in our programming. It's been very helpful in cross-checking the research behind our programming with research out there that I never would have found or that our folks never would have found had it not been for AI's ability to do that and to ensure that things that are quoted perfectly. It's been very helpful in writing. And we rewrite the playbook that runs the program. We rewrite that about every 2 years. AI has been helpful in this last rewrite in those aspects.
If you had a magic wand for AI, what top 1 or 2 things would you wish you were using it for? To get more participants in your program, to capture lost leads, deepen relationships with donors and partners? What would it be?
I would say deepen the relationships with donors and partners.
Do you communicate with them and like send them out things right now that kind of keep them up to date on what you're doing or wins that you've had or anything like that?
No, we don't have anybody on the team that has that capacity at the moment. So yeah, if we had somebody with the capacity to make those updates and utilize AIs, would be.
What's working really well for 23rd veteran that you're most proud of, whether it's program results, community response, fundraising, how your team operates? What are you most proud of?
Our program results for sure. There isn't a better program out there for the people that we've been serving and why we've been serving them. When it comes to functional mental health, well, there's clearly no better program in functional mental health because we created that. I've been doing this for 12 years now. And I pay a lot of attention to other programs and other therapies and what's available. To treat people on such a broad perspective, especially those that are falling through the cracks of others, yeah, it's absolutely incredible programming. Life-saving for a lot of folks, family-saving for a lot of folks. Our staff is truly cool being involved in positive psychology and functional mental health as we push that for our staff as well. That is also an awesome benefit to have a team that has the cohesion that our group therapy programs have. Like our team has got each other's backs through the good, through the bad, and we're comfortable being vulnerable with each other and sharing those things on a daily basis. We start every meeting with something that we're grateful for in 23rd Veteran.
What is something that's frustrating that you wish that you could improve?
Finding board members that want to help. Finding board members that have done that with other organizations, have been active and successful board members for our other organizations. We have a couple on our board, but for the most part, people who have been joining our board are people who love the mission, not necessarily people who have had success growing an organization before. So most of our growth happens at the staff level without a lot of support from the board. But we're on our way to improving that. We've brought on a couple successful board members, someone who's had a lot of experience. Our local fire chief is the chair of it. So frustration isn't probably the word that I would put on it. Definitely something that could be improved.
For listeners who dream of leading a nonprofit or becoming a CEO one day, especially in a mission-driven space like mental health, what are 2 or 3 practical tips you'd give them about leadership, resilience, and building something that lasts?
For people that would be interested in creating a nonprofit organization, there's a lot of those in the veteran community. Like there's a lot of veterans that just have that kind of drive, that entrepreneurial drive. So do you know how many veteran nonprofit organizations are in the U.S.? Do you have a guess?
Well, based on what you just said there, I'd probably say what, like 1,000? I don't know, 10,000?
44,000. 44,000 veteran-focused nonprofits in the U.S. Because of that, and this might sound hypercritical, that's not the right word. So because of that, so I was in the Marine Corps, so I can make up words. That's okay.
But hypercritical is actually a word too. You can have hypocritical, which is cynical, and hypercritical is like critical on crack. So you're okay.
Critical on crack, okay. I guess where I'm going with that is I think if you're interested in starting a nonprofit organization to serve mental health or veterans, try really hard to find a different organization that's doing something similar and partner with them. There's so many organizations that if you multiply 44,000 by an accountant and some legal paperwork and some marketing, like there's so much spending out there on the admin side of things and the back end side of things that is unnecessary. The problem is with that is that we see it our way, and our way is the right way. And this other organization is doing something a little bit different, so I want to start my own that does it a little bit different. If we can really try hard to focus on how we can help the other organization do it their way, and then maybe we can have some influence, that's going to be the most beneficial thing all around, rather than starting your own organization. Find organizations that are doing similar to what you're doing and partner.
Is there a veteran awareness unification program where everybody can share resources they can implement it the way they want to, but they can share the backside of it together? Yes? Is that what you mean?
I would say if you have a heart for animals, look at the American, what was it, ASPC? Is that right? Did I get that right? Okay. Help another organization that's already doing it so you can focus on what you enjoy, and that's the helping. That's most people that want to start a nonprofit organization. They want to help. They want to have the purpose of provided that, rather than you having to waste a lot of energy on building a board, filing for 501c3, filing your 990s, doing the accounting, doing the admin, figuring out the marketing. Rather than having to do all that, if you partner with another organization, you can be on the program side and do what really matters to you and be the boots on the ground and spend all of your time doing that rather than a small portion of it.
What's the biggest win that stands out in your mind over the last 5 to 10 years? It can be an individual story, program milestone, a ripple effect of what you're building, anything. I've
got a little story for this. It's a powerful story for me. Was starting 23rd Veteran. I went through an entrepreneurship course through Syracuse University, but it was actually hosted at Purdue. So I went to Purdue near Indianapolis. Again, this is when I was looking at starting 23rd Veteran. It was before it was an organization. I stopped by the grave of the closest person that I lost in combat. His name was Lance Thompson. He's buried in Indianapolis. So I went to his grave and I got down on my knees and I was talking with him, and I felt like I was almost confessing some things that I felt bad about. I felt bad that I was in this entrepreneurship program. It was very sought after. There was hundreds, if not thousands of applications. I was one of 28 people accepted. So I told Lance, I didn't know why I was given this opportunity to learn entrepreneurship, and I was going to make the most of it. I was going to make the most of it, not only for me, but for him, because he was such a good guy. And his good is no longer in this world. So I told him that when times got hard and things got difficult, when I felt like I gave all I could give, then I would give some more for him so that his good effort is still in the world as well. I went through the program and did very well in that, started 23rd Veteran, and I used that. Starting a nonprofit organization, especially in mental health, it's hard. And using your own finances, trying to figure out how to survive while doing it. There's a lot of times I would remember what I told Lance and I would just put the extra effort in for him. 10 years later, I was invited to Syracuse University in New York to give a keynote presentation to leaders of nonprofit mental health and military organizations, including the VA and the DoD. I was there to give a keynote presentation on what we've created with functional mental health and how we can better serve people in this space. And I can't help but know that was the good that I promised Lance that I would bring to the world. It was just kind of the culmination of it. That, I actually did it and I felt proud of it. And I broke down crying after that presentation. I just felt like a huge weight was lifted that I didn't realize I put on myself and put on my shoulders. Having gone through that, and I felt like the weight lifted. I feel like I completed that promise. I don't have to put that on me anymore. So since I've been able to start a family, that's something that I was definitely putting off because I didn't have the time for it. So I've got an 8-week-old at home.
Well, that's great. He'll be 21 before you know it. Enjoy every minute, every stage. They don't last very long.
They go from like 21 inches to 21 years. You don't even know what happened.
My son just celebrated his 21st this last summer, and I cannot figure out where the time went. But I was with him every step, every phase. I was very involved. I didn't have him until I was 34. There is so much value in being in every single minute that no matter what, we've enjoyed life. We've been together. I know his seasons. It's just really neat. When they're in their terrible phase, it's only 5 minutes and it's over. And when they want your attention, it's less than 5 minutes and they've moved on. To all of the people that want to get in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you?
If you're interested in anything 23rd Veteran, you can go to that website, 23rdveteran.org. We're on Facebook and we're on Instagram. Mike J. Waldron. You can look at mikejwaldron.me. Can go to LinkedIn. I'll be on there.
Mike, thank you for your work and what you're doing, for sharing your story with us today. Hearing how you turned your old battle with combat stress into structured, science-informed, and community-driven programs is powerful. It's a reminder that leadership is often born in the hardest chapters of our lives. For everyone listening, if this conversation moved you, take a moment to connect with Mike online, learn more about 23rd Veteran, and consider how you or your company, agency, or community might partner to bring this kind of trauma recovery work to more people who need it. So thank you. You did great.
Thank you, Niki.